love honor! I demand honor!
When Star Trek Lower Decks premiered during the height of the pandemic in August 2020, it was seen as a somewhat radical experiment. It was the first animated Trek show since the 1970s, the first Trek comedy ever, and the first time a Trek series focused on the junior officers aboard a Starfleet vessel. But now that it has ended after just 5 seasons, fans everywhere are speculating whether Lower Decks will return for a 6th season. Here's everything we know so far about the future of Lower Decks and the possibilities for the next chapter of the USS Cerritos crew. Before speculating on a potential 6th season, let's quickly reflect on the explosive, heartfelt, and surprisingly deep finale of Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5. Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5. Finale kicks off with a chilling Klingon cold open, introducing Relga's pursuit of revenge and a reality-warping fissure that sets the stage for the final showdown. After this action-packed opening, the Cerritos crew is back at their beloved bar, where we get a much-needed refresher on the personal arcs that have driven our Lower Deckers throughout the season. Mariner finds joy in her junior grade officer status. Boimler obsesses over his alternate reality self. T'Lyn and Tendi become a technobabble dream team, and Rutherford expresses his frustration with the outdated tech aboard the Cerritos. But things quickly escalate when a cryptic warning from Boimler's transporter twin sends him and Mariner to Captain Freeman, who, unsurprisingly, learns that reality is on the verge of destruction. A multiverse rift, surrounded by a field that can morph you into random alternate forms, becomes the center of chaos. The Cerritos is tasked with fixing it, despite Starfleet's most capable ships being too far to assist. The Cerritos crew is left to save the universe, once again relying on their own quirky solutions to a galaxy-ending crisis. Meanwhile, Maya, now a prisoner of the Klingons, is granted asylum aboard the Cerritos, but things quickly go south when Relga attacks, seeking revenge. As Freeman reconfigures the Cerritos for quantum tech, she's faced with Klingon infighting and the unexpected threat of a deteriorating multiverse. Amid the madness, the ship transforms into multiple iconic Starfleet classes due to the rift's effects, and tensions rise as the crew races against time. Rutherford, grappling with his cybernetic frustrations, has a breakthrough, diving into the warp core to reconfigure the ship and save the crew. Yet, the biggest surprise comes when the Cerritos splits into 2 quantum versions of itself, each controlling the other. It's a true team effort as Tendi and T'Lyn, now best friends and science powerhouses, combine their knowledge to restore the ship's unity. But just as it seems like the universe is doomed, Maylor's words of wisdom give Mariner the spark to reconfigure the rift's closure device, successfully stabilizing the multiverse's collapse. The Cerritos emerge victorious, and Ma'a is granted Relga's fleet as a reward. Starfleet soon relocates Starbase 80 to oversee the new permanent gateway, with Freeman ironically transferred to lead this new front of exploration into strange new realities. The crew bids an emotional farewell, but the adventure isn't over yet. The series wraps with a hopeful and bittersweet note as Rutherford, now implant-free, catches Tendi's eye, and Mariner expresses that this isn't the end, but the beginning of a new chapter. Captain Ransom takes command of the Cerritos, with Boimler and Mariner now competing to be his co-provisional first officers. He may have resisted the idea, but Captain Ransom believes they're ready for the challenge, now in charge of the Lower Decks. And as the Cerritos embark on its new mission, the future remains open-ended, with fans holding their breath to see what comes next. No Star Trek Lower Decks Season 6 on the horizon. It's official. The Cerritos has finished its run on Paramount Plus. After 5 seasons and a grand total of 50 episodes, Star Trek Lower Decks has concluded its journey on Paramount Plus. With the production of Season 5 wrapped up, the show's offices have officially closed. This means there is no Lower Decks Season 6 currently in development. The series finale marked the end of this chapter in the lives of the Lower Deckers, leaving the door open for potential future adventures. But for now, this voyage has come to an end. Could Star Trek Lower Decks Season 6 find a new home on Netflix or elsewhere? As Star Trek Lower Decks bids farewell to Paramount Plus, fans can't help but hope the series could find a new life on another streaming service, much like how Netflix stepped in to save Star Trek Prodigy. It seems like a no-brainer for Netflix to pick up Lower Decks, given their increasing dominance in the modern Star Trek animated space. This move would solidify Netflix's position as the go-to streaming service for all things Star Trek animated. However, much like Netflix hasn't renewed Star Trek Prodigy for a 3rd season, There's no word on Lower Decks making the leap to the platform either, though the Save Lower Decks campaign never gained the same traction as the Prodigy movement. It still speaks volumes about the show's passionate fan base. Both Lower Decks and Prodigy have delivered some of the best Star Trek episodes in recent memory, reviving legacy characters from Voyager, Enterprise, and Deep Space Nine, and adding fresh life to the franchise. However, for now, the future of Lower Decks seems uncertain, but the hope remains that one day its mission could continue, whether that be on Netflix or somewhere else entirely. Will Star Trek Lower Decks characters appear again? Even though Star Trek Lower Decks might be done as a series, there's still a chance that the USS Cerritos' beloved crew could make a comeback in future Star Trek projects, potentially even in live action. Tawny Newsome, who voices Lieutenant Beckett Mariner, is currently developing the first live-action Star Trek comedy set in the early 25th century. If her show gets the green light, it would be a perfect opportunity to bring her Lower Decks castmates and their characters along for the ride. In addition to her role as a lead in the potential live-action comedy, Tawny is also a writer and continuity cop on Star Trek Starfleet Academy, a series that's currently filming 2 back-to-back seasons in Toronto. Starfleet Academy, set in the 32nd century, could also provide a chance to bring back legacy Star Trek characters, such as the Doctor, Robert Picardo, from Star Trek Voyager. Through holograms, flashbacks, or other sci-fi means, virtually any Star Trek character could make an appearance. Mike McMahon, the creator of Star Trek Lower Decks, has also expressed his dream of seeing the show in live action someday. Perhaps that could be the next phase for the USS Cerritos, a live-action adventure with the Lower Decks crew stepping into a new frontier. The possibilities for future appearances are wide open, and fans are certainly hopeful that the characters won't be lost to the stars just yet. Mike McMahon says, "Celebrating Lower Decks is the only way to get more of the series." For Star Trek Lower Decks, creator Mike McMahon, the emotional moments in the show, like Mariner's speech at the end of the series, are about more than just goodbyes. He sees them as a celebration of the growth of the series and the relationships it built along the way. I think that moment makes you tear up, not because you're losing something, but because something really cool happened, McMahon shared, reflecting on how the series evolved from its first episode to its finale. McMahon explained that the finale speech is the culmination of everything Lower Decks represented, a show that explored the bigger world of Star Trek, celebrating not just the legacy characters, but the new ones, the silly episodes, and the more dramatic moments. He emphasized that Lower Decks was always meant to be multifaceted, blending humor, emotion, and legacy. From the quirky, twaining moments to the deeper connections with characters like T'Lyn and Ensign Ollie, McMahon feels the show's world was rich with endless possibilities. As for the future of Lower Decks, McMahon remains hopeful. Rather than lamenting the cancellation of the show, he urges fans to take a positive, celebratory approach. The way to get more Lower Decks is to be enthusiastic and hopeful and celebratory, McMahon says. It's not about demanding more, but showing how much the fandom cares in a joyful way. He believes this positive energy will help show the powers that be just how much the show means, making it clear that the Lower Decks fandom is something worth celebrating. McMahon is working behind the scenes to continue the adventure, and if fans rally around the show with respect and enthusiasm, there's always hope for more stories in the future. While the show may have concluded, there's no need to worry about Lower Decks vanishing from streaming. Unlike Star Trek Prodigy, which was pulled from Paramount Plus after its cancellation, Lower Decks appears safe for now. The 50 episodes of the animated comedy are still available for fans to enjoy on the platform, and if enough people continue to binge watch, perhaps the crew of the Cerritos will get a chance for new missions in the future.